In a world where the internet, pop culture, fandom, and music collide, there comes an opportunity to take advantage of this. Today, we've got Sam and Yoav of the Living Tombstone to have a chat with Wall Sound ahead of their first tour in Australia. How are we, guys?
Hey,
Howdy, howdy.
up.
Hi, Tyler.
Um, so ahead of this tour, you're about to tour Australia for the first time, and it's completely sold out on all the key cities of the East Coast. The demand to see the Living Tombstone Down Under is huge. The Melbourne date sold out in 24 hours, which is a pretty impressive feat. What
Whoa.
are
Yep.
you most excited for when you guys come to visit, whether it's on or off stage?
The
Um,
enthusiasm, I think.
yeah,
I think like selling out those shows so fast speaks to, like a lot of enthusiasm there and I'm so excited to get a sense of that. Also, scoping Australia out in case I need to change
yeah,
country.
yep. Okay. Well,
That,
outside of that,
yes. But that
gloomy,
is
gloomy, gloomy note.
I know, but I feel like that is part of, when we're there, when we've got downtime, I'm gonna be like, okay, nice. It's nice houses, nice people, good weather. Like it's, that's can't pretend I won't be doing that.
That's it.
Um,
Like, there's so much to see and do on and off stage here, which is good. And I'm sure that the crowds here are gonna they're really keen for you. They're obviously, like I said, the demand for the shows were huge. The following that you guys have is astronomical. And it's going to be really exciting to see in person for the Australian audiences the new dynamic way that we can experience the character-driven narratives that you guys have in your music. What are some challenges or insights that you guys have into the process of translating your work into a live setting?
That's a great question.
yeah. So the way we go about this is it's really just about because a lot of the songs are already structured in such a way that you can play with a live band. So our live band setup is Sam and I sing. We have a bassist, guitarist, and a drummer. So as long as
And tracks.
yeah, no, but I'll get so so when it comes to tracks, for example, okay, we listen to the song, and then basically a lot of parts in the song can already be translated to the respective like instruments. So bass, even if it's electric bass, we can actually have a lot of manipulation we could do with the bass. And then there's a lot of like in the Living Tombstone, it's very inspired by ska and reggae. So there's a lot of like twos and fours chords that play a lot. So the guitar can basically mimic a lot of what's happening there with guitar. And drums is you can both play digital and real drums together. Like he has a setup with an NPC that he can control everything. And then like Sam mentioned, so tracks. It's basically everything else that we would not be able to play at all with any of the instruments. So it's basically there's a click track and that we understand like how do we sync up to everything that's happening, and that's how we get like the songs to sound maybe like 75 80% close to the original songs that were not done with instruments in mind.
Yeah, cool. It's yeah, gonna be very interesting to see because you're just about to finish a North American tour, I believe. Um, where is that correct?
So we just finished our
Yep,
North American tour. We ended at like right at the end of the year.
yep, that's right. Yeah, so just finished North American tour. So it's you're not new in bringing this to the stage, but it'll be new to us, which yeah, obviously we're super keen to see. Um, I want to touch on your online presence. You've created a whole bunch of different soundtracks for new generations to spook themselves online, if you will. Our Wall of
Mhm.
Sound boss man, Brownie's son, he's particularly fond of your music and he's a avid long online listener. For the
Mhm.
parents who aren't quite latched on to what the Living Tombstone is yet, what do you want them to know about your purpose as entertainers?
It's
Um,
really interesting. I mean, I think part of it is, and part of the reason that there tends to be a lot of appeal for young people is that TLT grew out of the world of fandom of video games, of cartoons, and stuff like that. And I think, so much of that is something that I think a lot of young people find very easy to digest. I think the like media diet of young people tends to be very kind of biased towards like games and cartoons and that kind of thing. And so I think the first thing that I would say to help someone understand TLT is that the roots are in fan art, and that is part of why the fan base is like this very, it's like an online community that happens to be around a band instead of a video game.
Yeah, it's like you because it's not it's the thing that's so fascinating and why we're trying so hard to bridge the gap is that because it's because we're both fans of the things that people on the internet are fans, and to be both the performer is such an interesting like not to sound like fourth world breaking stuff, but it's like meta because it's like we're both the fans and the performers.
Yeah.
But in more than ways than none, because I'm sure like people listening being like, well, isn't it like what a musician does? Like he's a fan of his own music. Like, yeah, I totally, I that's true. I'm not dismissing the definition. It's more that because we're internet band, so we're not just fans of our music, but we're fans of what we're seeking and making music about.
Yes.
So when we do everything from like internet culture to like the current album that we're releasing and promoting Rust, it's like we very much want to be fans of not just that, but also the things that we are very much into, and that's also extends to beyond music. We're an audio video act, so music videos are very much about exploring that even more deeply.
Yeah, and part of why
Yeah.
we have these interesting costumes that we perform with on stage is because like we're very self-aware of the fact that like we are a visual experience to people online. You know,
Hmm.
online you're often not just listening to the music on Spotify, you're watching it on YouTube or something. So I think part of that is also trying to create a really interesting visual experience for the in-person listener.
Yeah, no, that's really good because for musicians to have, or any kind of media content creator to have that proper output that's going to last, they need to have the passion for their work and the passion for what they're doing, which
Yep.
clearly you guys have. Like you said, you're fans of what you make the music about. You're not making the music about any random thing you pull out of a hat. Um,
Mhm.
and you also still manage to maintain a great sense of community despite, your high numbers and your high success, in your career. You guys still manage to maintain that community with your fans, which is really cool to see.
And they're really good to each other too. I think that's one of the things that like allows our concerts. It's been part of I think why our concerts have been succeeding, and why there has been like good word of mouth about our shows is that our fans are really kind to each other, and they're really like I think it's it's always a roll of the dice when it comes to an online fandom, what kind of fandom you're going to get. I think to an extent you can influence it, but ultimately you don't really have control over like who's in the club. And I think it's been amazing to see that the fan base, as big and international as it is, still has that kind of like small community inclusiveness and love for each other when they link up in person.
Yeah, it's like we're talking about um because if you think about it, the Living Tombstone encompasses a lot of different things that we're into. It also extends to the Tombstonas because we have five different Tombstonas that are all very different in how they feel and react and act. And then you also have the fandom stuff, which is also separate, from one to the other. So you have like Freddy's, My Little Pony, and these are all like. And I think when you're a fan who go to our show, you end up also having to understand and respect that you have people with you that are also in different parts of the internet that the Living Tombstone are very much into, and I guess that mutual respect and
Yeah.
understanding. That's what that's my theory on why this cultivated our kind of audience.
Yeah, that's a really good point because it really is, it's almost reductive to call it like one sort of fan because there are the people who they're there because they really want to see the Five Nights at Freddy's songs. They're the fans who are there because they really want to see songs about My Little Pony. There are fans that are there because they want to see this song we did for Beat Saber. But then there are also fans that show up because they love the characters we play on stage
Yeah,
and they want to get to the barricade so can be close to the base character Tesla. You know, it really is sort of this wide spectrum of interests, and yet they still are like in community with each other, even if they're not all there for the same reasons. It's very cool to see.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing is that we try, even if you're like, let's say, a fan of one fandom, or but not a fan of this one, much like how you can have a fan who's like more of a fan of Rust in this example, or more of Zero One, is that they can still listen to something that's outside of their periphery and say, this is still good. This is still like understands what it's about. It understands like the love for the thing that we're singing about, and still be into it in the end of the day it's still music for the sake of music, and that's like I think what's so fascinating.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that too, there's something that we notice on stage is that the people who are there, like clearly for the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff,
Yeah,
when we're playing stuff that's not that, you don't get that thing that happens at concerts sometimes where people are just checked out when it's not the music that they want to hear from
yeah,
the band.
yeah.
Everyone is so in it and so like down to experience the show, whatever the shape of the show is, whatever songs are being played,
Hmm.
even if there's specific stuff they're there for, they're not just like kind of in the back getting a drink when there's anything else. And they're there also when we have opening acts. They're so there for the opener too, which is so great. Like being able to introduce people to music artists that they may not already be aware of, but they're coming in with this open mind and learning to love these new music artists the same way that we love them, which is why
Yeah,
we pick them.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
we definitely cultivated this mentality of you can let yourself be engaged in things that you're
Yeah.
not as much into, but you still respect and love it because it's still part of the same
Yeah.
pool. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's really, really good because like the intersectionality of so many different kind of communities and fandoms into this one group of people who love the music and love the different things, like the different topics, the focuses of the music. They all come together and they all. It's good that it's an overall positive experience, and that's what helps the community stay tight because, you know, that's such an important thing to, growing as, as creators and, having a good community to give back to is always such a wholesome thing to do. So I love that.
Mm,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. I just also want to touch on Five Nights at Freddy's, because obviously that's quite a successful video game franchise and has had a very successful movie adaptation, featuring you guys in the end credits. It was a remastered, redone version in the end credits, was it?
Yes, it was a
Uh,
new Atmos version, I believe.
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, yes.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm just wondering what's been the most strangest and rewarding things that have come from this series bursting in popularity for you guys?
Ooh.
Um, I think it was like the interesting ripple effect that making a song about Favorites of Freddy's had. So, for example, there was a stream with that Jack Black did with Markiplier, and he also had his son in the stream. And Jack Black decided at the whim, there was nothing prompting him to do it, as far as I know, to basically sing Favorites of Freddy's during the video. And I was like, those weird, strange, like this is one of many weird, strange moments that happen
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
the song.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a surreal moment to hear Jack Black scatting over a song that Yoav wrote, 10 years ago. It's very fun,
It's,
Yeah.
but
it's
also surreal.
but that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not like when Sam and I do anything. It's not like we know like, oh, this is gonna be big. This is gonna be
Oh, you
huge
never
because
know. You never
and
know.
also there's never our mentality to begin with when it comes to trying to make a song about someone we like. Because in the case of Five Nights at Freddy's, the song came out like 2 weeks after the game came out, because at the time like it was I saw like forums like talking about this new game that just emerged just like a couple days ago, and then got me to think like, okay, interesting, what's happening here? And then I see that they're presenting the story in an interesting way that's like very lore based. It's like a newspaper on the wall kind of thing. And that was enough for me as like a way to go off of and say I'm inspired to make a song about this game that just came out.
Yeah, and you would never know like 9 years later it's in a big horror movie. Like
Exactly.
it's
There was no, but because the guy who made this game is like he just released a game that no one yet talked about as much. Like it
yeah.
was just, it could have been just whatever, but this somehow caught on fire. Like past those 2 weeks basically.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like how an indie developer like the person behind Five Nights at Freddy's, creates this game, this franchise which just takes off, and you guys, as an internet band, you've grown as well with that, like alongside it, and you get to kind of almost come full circle to a degree when your song is featured in the movie adaptation. Like it's pretty phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a very good
I
point.
mean,
Like in a
yeah,
lot of ways, it's like we've both come so far, and look at
yeah.
us.
Look at us. What
Look
are
at
we
us.
thought?
Who'd have thought?
What not me?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's to give credit to Scott Cawthon, the guy who made the games. He reached out to us really early on, and that was his like vision basically from the very beginning. Like even when the movie switched production studios and stuff, it's like the idea from the very beginning was to say, yes, the game has its story and we can make a movie about it, but the song is relevant to the game because we're talking about fans who are engaged in the story in such a way that there is even music about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this was before Blumhouse was attached, before the
Yes,
final director
Mm,
was attached. Scott had already emailed Yoav being like, "It's important to me that this song is in this film."
awesome. I love that. Like
that's
it's again
so
the sense of
fascinating.
community and looking out for each other is just so wholesome to hear, especially, when you hear on the front lines, you hear the stories of, the the businesses, the business parts of the industry, like undercutting each other and all kinds
Yeah,
of
yep.
nonsense that goes on in the background. To hear that you guys have that sense of community, and you and Scott, you don't forget where you come from. You do it for the fans, and you know how special he knows how special your song is for that franchise, and that recognition is just, yeah, really really wholesome to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I would like to ask you a bit of a fun question. If you could provide the soundtrack for any boss battle in gaming, who would it be for and what would it sound like?
Ooh,
Every
any boss battle in gaming,
any boss battle gaming and what again? Sorry.
and and
And what would
what
it
would it
sound
sound
like?
Oh my God. Oh my God. This is such a fun question. You're right about that. Now I need to give a
Yeah.
second to know.
What's interesting for me is
It's
that
an
the
improv.
bosses that come to mind because of the soundtrack that already exists for them. I think
Yeah,
of like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, but like
Ooh,
that is
iconic.
so much of what makes that interesting is the music that exists for it already. So I realize that maybe one of the ways in which I think about bosses is very audio wise. So it's like all the bosses that come to mind, they come to mind because from an audio level, the music is so cool.
I wonder, if we're talking about boss for video games, I really liked Vaas from Far Cry 3.
Far Cry
Yeah,
3.
And I think it would be
yeah,
fun because he didn't actually have a theme song. He just had a sequence or whatever, but I think he really deserves
mm,
some themes. And I
yeah,
think
some
that
iconic theme.
yeah, so I think because that's one character if like I
That's
would
a
have
good
loved to take the
answer.
answer
That's
the
a good
challenge.
answer.
I like it.
Uh,
I like it.
yeah. I don't think I'm gonna have an answer better than that. Let's stick with
No.
yours.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's yeah, really interesting, like talking about video games and music and stuff. The how you kind of think of the boss fight or whatever, for example, and the music that goes into it is a big part of it.
Mhm.
Like for example, there's some iconic like Souls like games. Some of the bosses in there have some iconic
Oh,
themes, like Gwyn the Lord of Cinder, for example, in Dark Souls 3, like an iconic boss battle track. So yeah, it's
mhm.
yeah, really interesting.
It's so good it's used outside of Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
So much like
It is the memes are fantastic as well. Love the
yeah.
memes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even more just proving the kind of the whole kind of sense of the internet in general is just crazy on how it can like spread that meaning, and you can hear your songs in so many different aspects. It's yeah, really, really cool. Well, that is it for me, gentlemen. I'm gonna wrap up
Oh,
there. It was an
thank you so much,
absolute pleasure
Simon.
chatting with
Likewise.
you,
Great to
and
chat with
we look forward to seeing you guys when you come and smash out that Australian tour.
Of
you.
course.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care.